Hey, what's going on, guys? What's up, Aaron? Shane, what's going on? Waiting. I just got a phone call from Mark, so I'm waiting on some stragglers. He's going to be straggling in here. He got off work late. Can you guys all hear me? I'll take Yeehaw as a yes. Hopefully, we get more people. We got 6 right now. What's going on, Chris? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. So, what's going on? What's everybody been up to? Besides spending money on tackle, I know that's what Knowles is doing. Chris, where are you fishing? Lockdown, Kirk. I feel you, Kirk. Same thing, man. Get a new respect for teachers, that's for sure. I got 3 little ones. Oh, okay, the lagoon. John, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining. Hopefully this has been easy for everybody to kind of join. I'll wait a little bit longer, get a few people in, and we'll kick this thing off. Yeah, I heard Marina got shut down today. Derwin and those guys, or not Derwin, but Sonny. Man, 95 boats. Wow. Yeah, everybody's probably just piling in there. That's actually one thing we can't talk about, believe it or not, is apparently if you talk about the sickness that's going around and you say the actual name of it, YouTube is getting rid of your videos. That was something I reached out to a guy that goes live a lot, and he told me that he was warned by YouTube not to talk about it. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know why we can't say it, but I'm not allowed to actually say the name of the sickness that is going around. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, me too, man. I don't even know what to do anymore. I got tackle warehouse cart constantly opened, and it's bad. All I want to do is buy tackle now. For those of you that just joined, we're going to wait a little bit longer, at least a couple more minutes for some stragglers to get in, and then we'll kick it off. Right now, we're just kind of talking about what's going on, what's everybody doing. I know that they're getting more strict and more strict about getting out there. Is anybody fishing the bay right now, or is that fully shut down? Nice, Chris. I was watching a YouTube video today of a local guy here that fishes saltwater, and he got kicked out. He was over by I don't exactly know what spot he was in the bay, but he got kicked out by a cop. The cop came over and told him he had to leave. The cop was really cool about it, super respectful. He basically said, you know, if I let you fish here, even though you're not within 6 feet, more people will start coming in, and then he's got to kick everybody out. So the only fair way was just to do that, kick all people out. So he got kicked off his spot on the bay. The boat ramp is shut down. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. So I mean, so you can't even get to your boat, Aaron? Yeah, hopefully hopefully people start taking it serious and we can get back on the water soon. Man, that's nuts. Can't even get to his boat. All right. We'll kick it off. Mark told me to go ahead and wait a little bit, give him about 4 or 5 minutes and then start. So we'll kick it off. Again, for those of you that have been following along on the Facebook page, this is the first time we've ever done this. This was just something that me and Mark were kind of discussing, that it would be cool just to sit down and talk about whatever fishing with you guys. It's kind of the only way that we can do it with this whole 6 feet rule. So in the future, I will be bringing people on and kind of subject matter experts, and we'll kind of talk about, you know, whatever topics you guys want to vote on if we want to keep moving forward with this. But for this one, we have like 7 lakes that I'll be talking about, and I asked 7 different people to help me out with it. So trying to get 7 different people to come on here with me would have been too difficult. So we're just going to kind of roll with it with an open discussion. One thing is, again, we can't talk about the sickness that's going around. And I just want you guys to know this is open discussion. This wasn't like me doing this because I feel like I'm an expert on these lakes or anything. Those of you that have fished against me know that I'm definitely not an expert on these lakes. But this is just something to where we can talk about the lakes. I contacted people that I know fish these lakes really well, and they volunteered to help out. Some people volunteered to help me, and we just wrote up some things on the lakes, kind of what to expect, some facts, some opening times, all that stuff, that if you're kind of new or you struggle on a lake, that maybe this can help you out. So I know we have a lot of new members. Guys that have been here a while, or anybody that has any advice on these lakes, feel free. That's what this live chat portion is for. And again, this is open discussion. So we're basically doing this to try to get better and just to try to keep our minds without, losing our minds and going insane. So feel free to tell me I'm wrong or whatever about anything we say on here. I'm not going to get offended. Everybody has done well fishing these lakes, doing their own thing. So let people know if you want. You don't have to share secrets. That was one thing that I told everybody was, hey, I don't want to know your secrets. If you've got stuff you want to keep to yourself and that's why you're successful, then that's fine. But anything that you guys want to tell me that we can tell everybody else, let's go from there. And from what I have, it seems like everybody told me pretty much everything. And that's kind of what this club has always been about, is just helping each other. So the outline of how tonight's going to go, I'm going to go over each of the SoCal Kayak Anglers Club lakes that we were going to fish in that order. So obviously Hodges is done. I pushed Hodges to the very back, and El Capitan. The very next lake was going to be Hodges. So we'll kick it off with Lake Hodges. Again, if you guys have anything you want to discuss about Lake Hodges in the chat, feel free. And that's perfectly fine. Hey, Mark. Welcome, Mark. Just letting the guys know what we already talked about. We'll kick it off with Hodges. Again, this is open discussion, so feel free. Obviously, I don't know if the guy that won Hodges, I don't know if I can pronounce his name, John DeMonnet. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But obviously, if he's in, he could chime in too on how to absolutely destroy all of us like he did. But I'm not sure if he's on or not. We got 16 people on, so we're going to kick it off with Lake Hodges. I will be kind of glancing over and reading off a lot of this stuff because I reached out to people and I want to read verbatim what they told me. So Lake Hodges, it's a seasonal lake. It's usually open February through October. There's 27 shoreline miles. It's a no water contact lake. So for those of you that are new here, basically you can't swim in our lakes. You can't, and some of them in the no water contact, most of them, you can't swim. You can't go into the water. And I know that's really weird. It definitely takes a while to get used to that. It's open Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, a half an hour before sunrise, and then it closes a half an hour before sunset. This year, they also started this new thing where they close down the lake one time each month on one day. For Hodges, it is the third Wednesday of each month. And that's not easy to get used to. I took a picture of it a long time ago and put it in my phone of all the lakes on what that random day is. I could post that, or I'm sure it's already posted on SoCal Kayak Anglers webpage or their Facebook page. But if I was you, I would save that into my phone. And if anybody needs it, let me know. I could send it to you or repost on the page. Because there has been people that have gone out thinking they're going to go to Hodges on a Wednesday. It happened to be the third Wednesday of the month, and you get sent back home because the lake is closed. It's kind of known around here for being a big bass lake. The lake record is 20 pounds, 4 ounces, which is one of the biggest largemouth ever. And it's not stocked with trout. So that's kind of the remarkable thing about it, is to get a 20-pound bass, usually in Southern California, it's one of those trout stock lakes. It could humble you for sure. It's one of those lakes that it's not easy to fish, but there's days where you don't know what you're doing different, and the fishing is on fire. You can go back the very next day on a Sunday and you can get your butt kicked. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had that happen before. All right, so there's tons of structure: trees, bushes, rocks, tules. There's pretty much everything at Lake Hodges, which is different from a lot of the other lakes here in San Diego. For those that fish Hodges and you try to fish crankbaits, everybody here that has done that knows you lose a lot of crankbaits at Hodges. So a lure retriever, in my opinion, if you're going to throw any type of crankbaits or treble baits that get down a little deep, I would recommend buying a lure retriever, especially for Lake Hodges. The water is a little bit dingier than most lakes in San Diego, at least in my opinion. So you can get away with a little bit more reaction style baits. You don't really have to go finesse as much as you would on other lakes. Again, that's my own opinion. All right, so I reached out to Ryan Moriarty for Lake Hodges, and again, I'm not saying that Ryan Moriarty is the best Lake Hodges fisherman in our whole group, but I know he's a damn good one for sure. And he fishes that lake all the time. So I reached out to people that I know have a ton of experience on that lake. This is what Ryan said. This is what he wrote me. He said, I always start off to the left, fishing the narrows as my first target. Then I move on and I target each rock pile along the shoreline where cover changes from rocky shoreline to sticks. He says there's always fish in the sticks, but he doesn't really like to fish them because you got to kind of fish it slow in order to get bit. He likes to start out with search baits, square bills, chatterbaits, spinner baits, and on his spinner baits, he keeps them on the smaller size. He likes natural imitations. He's done better with shad imitations. Anything natural, bluegill colors, red crawdad colors, and then the occasional straight white, he said, works for him pretty well. And then he'll throw in some chartreuse, but nothing too crazy. He says if he feels like the fish wants something slower and he's struggling on the reaction baits, he'll go to a Texas rig, usually 1/8 of an ounce, and he'll adjust the size for the rate of fall as, the fish tell him if they want that or not. But a 7-inch straight tail margarita mutilator is a worm that he likes to go to, or just creature baits, and he works them really slow. And again, this is after he goes through his reaction baits. He says when working the shoreline from the kayak, he likes to hug the shore and keep all his baits in the strike zone for as long as possible. And don't be afraid to throw up. When he's throwing on shore, he was telling me he's throwing into like an inch of water, not a foot. I mean, he's literally getting it right up on the bank. And he said a lot of the times if he doesn't get it right up on the bank, he isn't getting bit. So those fish are shallow. And I especially see that too when I go there. When that water is the more murky that water is, the shallower I usually get them. So yeah, again, he says he gets more strikes right at the bank than anything else. And then if he's not getting bit at the bank, he says they're not far off the bank. So he'll pull his yak up to the bank and he'll throw out into about 12 feet of water, and then he'll bring that bait back up slowly and he'll get bit. So he doesn't really fish too crazy deep there. He writes that frogs are a good choice in the sticks as well as drop shot. Obviously you've got to rig that drop shot to where it's weedless, and then flipping and pitching weightless Syncos is always a method that can get you bit there. He likes to use fishing syndicate rods with Shimano SLX reels, line size 8 to 12 pounds, depending on what he's throwing, with fluorocarbon. He will use 65-pound braid and 20-pound mono as a leader if he's going to go fish into some heavy sticks and rocks with jigs and things like that. So obviously you can get away with a little bit of that heavier line at this lake with that dingier water. And then most of the time those fish are hitting that stuff on the fall anyways. He says he'll try every single bait and every way that you can fish it at Hodges. Fast, slow, and anything that's going to make the bait look a little bit different. So he'll hop it down the steep banks with rocks. He'll drag it. And then basically he's detecting what got bit. Was I hopping it when I got bit? Was I dragging it? He'll try the flats. For those of you that have fished Hodges, you guys know about the flats. And dragging it, swimming it, anything he can to just get a reaction. And he says the biggest thing that he can say about figuring out Hodges is to keep an open mind. Use multiple type of baits and styles till you find the pattern. Watch the birds, keep your eyes and your ears open, and listen to the cues of the lake and what nature is telling you. All right, so I don't know if Ryan's on here because I'm reading, so I'm not able to see. But great job, Ryan. He broke it down really well, in my opinion, told a lot of stuff. And Ryan catches them at Hodges. That's for sure. And for those of you that know Ryan, you guys all know that. Some stuff that works well out there. Like I said, you could pretty much get away with a lot of reaction in Hodges. And then if the reaction's not working, you can go into flipping and pitching. So I wrote down some stuff that's worked for me. Crankbaits, spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, a lot of the same stuff Ryan said. Frogs, underspins usually do well. If I want to throw a swim bait, I throw an underspin to get some extra flash on there as well. So that's Lake Hodges. A bunch of people here fish Lake Hodges. A bunch of people have caught some big fish fishing Lake Hodges. So in my opinion, it's probably one of our favorite lakes here to fish for the guys that have been in this club for a long time. Definitely is for me. I just wish it wasn't so much of a drive to get out there. All right, moving on. The next stop would have been San Vicente. So this is San Vicente Reservoir. For those of you that don't know, the lake was closed in 2009 so they could raise the dam. It was a $1 billion emergency water storage project. The lake reopened in 2016, and for those first couple of days, there were reports of 100+ fish being caught. Unfortunately, those days are long gone now. You can have good days out there, but you're not going to be pulling 100 fish days. And if you are, don't tell anybody what you're doing. It is 2 different schedules. So that's another weird thing we have here in San Diego. There's 2 different schedules. There's a winter schedule and a summer schedule. The summer schedule is May through October. During the summer schedule, the lake is open Thursday through Monday with water contact on all of those days except for Monday. Once that weather starts warming up, it becomes kind of a madhouse. It's one of the most popular lakes and one of the only lakes that the pleasure boaters could come out, and they do not care for bass boats, and they definitely don't care much for kayaks. So you got to be careful out there, especially when the temperature starts climbing. It becomes a madhouse. A lot of wealthy college kids or college kids with wealthy parents that have expensive fast boats, and they're not paying attention to you at all. So just be careful, especially if you're heading out towards the middle, toward the island during those summer months. I recommend going with another person if you're going to do that, and recommend going with another person anywhere you go around here. But definitely if you're going to try to get to that island. Okay, so getting into the winter schedule. The winter schedule is November through April. And Sunday is the only day for water contact. So The winter schedule for bass fishermen, a lot of people like it. I definitely like it. You don't have the pleasure boaters aren't out there, and you can still get bit even though it's the winter schedule. The lake is same hours as Hodges, half an hour before sunrise, and it'll close a half an hour before sunset. Their one closing day, random closing day of the month, is the second Friday of each month. It's known for being an extremely clear and deep lake with a ton of structure. It's pretty unique, and it's not that easy to fish, in my opinion. It's so when they raised all that water, it basically flooded a ton of the bank bushes and boulders, and trees were flooded. So the fish there, they hang out in those trees, they hang out behind those boulders, and they can see you coming from a long ways away. So they're very smart. But there are big fish in there, tons of big fish in there, and they're kayak big fish. They're very long. A lot of times you see them, they're skinny, but they're long, so they help us out in the kayak tournaments a lot. There's a ton of quagga mussels in that lake. So your line, if they wrap you up in those trees have those mussels on them, and they will slice your line up extremely fast. So try to get them out of those bushes. If you set the hook and there's those bushes, try to get them out as fast as you can. And I put at the bottom, I would say out of all the lakes here that we fish, a lot of people hate this lake. I did not like it, but I'm starting to get better fishing it now, and I'm starting to understand it a little bit better. But it's not the easiest lake in the world to fish. It takes some time to get used to. So the person that I reached out to for some help on San Vicente was Aaron Knowles. Aaron won our most recent tournament out there, was a fish and chill. I know Aaron's on here. He kicked all our butts, and he dropped some good knowledge. So I'll read you guys exactly what Aaron wrote to me. He says, as you already know, they are some of the spookiest fish around. He likes to fish as light of line as possible, and he says, I'll even use 5-pound test on my deep drop shot rod there. He's caught fish deeper there than anywhere else in San Diego. He's always staring at his graph on that lake, even when crossing it. During the summer/winter, it's not a bad idea to look out as far as 55 to 65 feet deep on the giant secondary points in each arm. He likes to throw Cincos or small Texas rigs. Those are his two favorite baits to throw. He enjoys the precise pitching and skipping required to get bit. So he says most guys can fish the edges of tules and still get bit, but have much better success the deeper in the tules that they cast. Same thing for this lake, but with the brush. The pitch has to have a super quiet entry, or the fish will scatter. He says, I don't think a lot of people understand this part across the board, especially at San Vicente. It doesn't matter if you make an accurate pitch to a piece of cover. If it is coming in from a high angle, it splashes everywhere. Those fish are gone, which is very true. It's got to be silent, and it has to be accurate. As for reaction baits, he says the only thing that he could talk about reaction-wise with a straight face is Alabama rigs and jerk baits. And if I remember correctly, that's what he kicked our butt on the last time we fished, was jerk baits. I think that's right, if Aaron's still here. He says, I've only had limited success with those, but they're always still going to be his lineup when he goes to San Vicente. So he gave me a 5-rod lineup. Drop shot with a 5-pound line for deep. Like I said earlier, drop shot with 10-pound line for shallow. And I'm assuming those are fluoro. Cinco Texas rig with 12-pound line. And then a heavy Texas rig and jig rod with 15-pound line. And then his jerkbait rod he throws with 10-pound line. So for those of you that haven't fished there or struggle there, the thing that I wrote down for this lake for me is very long casts, and that's kind of what me and Aaron were talking about as well. You cannot let these fish know you're there unless you're flipping into the bushes. You can pretty much get on top of them then, but that's just that quick reaction bite on the fall. A lot of times, if they see you, they're gone. They don't want anything to do with it. try to make sure they have no idea you're there. And that's kind of our advantage in the kayak world, is we can do that a lot better than the boats can do that. I wrote down some baits that have worked for me, and a lot of them were very similar to Aaron. I throw jerk baits a lot there. I throw wake baits a lot there, big wake baits. Something that these fish can see, but I throw it in like a lot of natural colors. So for jerk baits that have done, like my best, most successful jerk bait bite there comes on something like that. That's a flash pointer from Lucky Craft in a ghost minnow color. It's got that clear body, and that's because that water is 20 to 30 foot visibility. So you need something real clear. And a lot of times I'll start out throwing something smaller, like a Stacy 90, like that. Tactical Bassin guys love that bait. It's a good bait. It works. So, of course, Margarita Mutilator will work. Anytime you're stuck here in San Diego and you cannot get bit, throw that stupid Margarita Mutilator and you will get bit. Just be prepared to lose a lot of drop shot weights and things like that at San Vicente. It could be an expensive trip. And same thing with jigs. Jigs work there. I have my best success with jigs at that lake, but I don't throw them that often, so can't really say that. But I lose a lot of jigs there as well. So flukes are another thing that I've done well there. Another natural presentation, light line, 8 pound, 10 pounds, just natural bait fish. They will school up on those bait fish a lot at San Vicente, so you will catch them while they're busting on them. I don't know if anybody else has been out there for that, but it gets pretty wild. And you will find schools of like 50 plus fish. I've seen it a few times. I've got a video on this channel from a couple of years back, I think like 2 years back, where I had a massive school go underneath me and I stuck my GoPro down in the water and you could see it on video. There was easily over 50 bass underneath me, all good size. So I appreciate it, Aaron. Again, good job on the write-up for sure. It helps out a lot of people. And that was a tough day of fishing. The last tournament he won, he figured him out. And then almost died doing it, I think. That was the same tournament you flooded your kayak. All right. Next lake we would have went to. Now, I say we would have went to. We still might go to these lakes. I don't know how all that's going to work out. That's going to be with Mark and with everything that's going on in this world right now. I don't know what the deal is with if we got to reschedule or what. I'm sure that stuff will be put out in the future. But Lake Sutherland, I don't have a huge write-up on Lake Sutherland. I actually had a difficult time thinking of who I would reach out to for this lake. So if you know a lot about Lake Sutherland, you fish a lot about Lake Sutherland, you're on right now, feel free to let people know, you know, what your secrets are there. Not your secrets, but what you feel free or what you would want to share. So this write-up is a little bit smaller. 1 second. But it's still a great lake, that's for sure. I like it a lot. I fish it as much as I can. It's a long ways away. So it's located in Ramona, California. Again, this is Lake Sutherland, located in Ramona, 45 miles northeast of downtown San Diego. It's a seasonal lake, much like Hodges, but it's open March through September. It is only open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And Fridays is the best for us because boats aren't allowed on Fridays. So it's basically just tubers, which you see every once in a while out there, and then kayakers. And to be honest, this lake doesn't get that much pressure at all. Not a lot of people go there. That's why I like it. Again, it is a no water contact lake. And it's somewhat, what I wrote down is it's somewhat similar to Hodges. It's got dingier water for sure. It's kind of up in the mountains, and it is not a clear lake reservoir like San Vicente or Miramar or anything like that. It definitely has some dinginess to it, and you can get away throwing a lot more baits there, reaction style. So a couple years ago, the lake was hit really hard back in like 2014 when I first started fishing out of a kayak. That was the first lake I ever went to was Lake Sutherland, and it was like a mud puddle. I'm sure guys that have been here a lot longer than me know what I'm talking about. It got down super low. It got down super low. I won't mention the A-rig, swim jig, or chatterbait mark. And it turned into a puddle, and the fishing there was horrible. I mean, it was, nobody went to Lake Sutherland back in those days, and kind of got that reputation of just, hey, don't fish. You know, there's a bunch of other lakes here. There's no point in fishing Sutherland. Well, since then, to go the day before, but I wasn't able to make the tournament. I did pretty well the day before, and then looking at the standings, the guys did pretty well the next day. So the bite is on. Me and Mark went out there before the whole shutdown happened, and we did pretty well out there, and there was size. So the fish they're in there. It's definitely rebounded pretty well in the past 6 years. So again, the water's dingy, and the thing that's weird about the lake, or different, not really weird, is the way that the shoreline comes into the water. It's a slow tapering. So it's not like a lot of the other lakes where it just drops down straight, kind of like San Vicente does. A lot of the shoreline slow tapers into the water, and it's got a lot of interesting structure. So some shorelines you'll see when you get there are completely bare. There's like nothing on them. And you go a little bit further and you turn a corner, and then the next shoreline is covered with trees, boulders, sticks, everything you can imagine. So obviously those are target-rich environments, and pretty much whenever you see a bass boat out there, they're either there or they're on the points. At least in my opinion, when I'm out there, that's what I see. So it's not really a hard lake to see where the fishing should be good. But again, there's not a lot of people that are really out there either. And the past few years, at least from what I've noticed, there's been a bunch of trees that used to be below the water line, and now they're out above the water line. So when me and Mark were there recently, there was trees coming out of 12 feet of water, and then they extended up out of the water another 3 or 4 feet. So now that lets us pitch in on those trees, which I actually didn't get bit in those. I'm not sure if Mark did. I didn't get a single bite pitch in those trees, but it is new structure that, not really new structure to the fish, but new structure that we can now see, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. Baits to use that I wrote down. Spinner baits work really well out there. I've always done really well with spinner baits every time I go there. Fishing them in the sticks. So chatterbaits are a little bit harder to fish in the sticks. They don't really come through the sticks as well as spinner baits do. Swim jigs is another thing that me and Mark had success on out there last time. And that was something that I don't really throw that much, but I'm trying to get into this year. Vibrating jigs, of course. Chatterbaits work out there for sure. Frogs work for sure. Buzz baits was another thing that was working recently when we were out there. I saw a boat catch a few on a buzz bait next to us. Pitching and flipping definitely works out there. Guys were slaying them on jigs last year, doing really well on jigs. So, I mean, the lake has rebounded. Again, I didn't reach out to anybody, but it's definitely worth checking out. It is a far drive, but it is a fun lake to kind of go out there and get a change of scenery. There's bald eagles all the time out there. There's a lot of nature. It's just, in my opinion, it's probably one of my favorite lakes. It's a cool lake to head out and visit. All right, so that's Lake Sutherland. Hopefully we'll get back out there soon, but who knows? Oh, some of the baits that I like to throw at Sutherland. For crankbaits, I like to throw bigger crankbaits just because that water is dingy. I took this bait out there last year. This is one of the bigger Strike King baits. And with a little bit of chartreuse, I did really well fishing this one. Spinner baits wise, I'm throwing stuff that looks like this. Dingy color spinner baits, white blades, chartreuse blades, white and chartreuse. And then for a lipless bait, I've done good on this lipless bait. This is a bigger lipless, very loud. Just stuff that's visible, that's visible in that dirty water, and it's loud, and you'll get bit there. You don't have to throw a drop shot or a Cinco if you don't want to, but a drop shot and a Cinco will slay those fish out there just as well as anything. So, all right. Let's see. I'm going to sit back and read some of the comments for a second. Only lake I've caught with a square bill and a jig. Yeah, I mean, for sure. The square bill will work out there. Just find boulders for the square bill. And the last time I was there before I went with Mark, the last time I was there last year, I caught 20 plus fish in a day on a square bill there. One of the best numbers days I've ever had in San Diego, and I only threw a square bill. I actually threw this square bill, but in a different color. That's a skirmish bait square bill called an M9. I used to be a promotional staff with them, and their baits work, that's for sure. I still buy them. But any square bill will get you bit out there, any one. That's a one knocker version. That's what I do the best on, is one knockers. Mark says Gino wrecked it on a jig last year. I know that the jig bite was pretty good there last year. I just suck at fishing a jig, just to be completely honest. That's just my personal opinion, but it's like a little mini Hodges. Maybe not as big a fish, though. All right, Lower Otay is next. Okay, for those of you that don't know anything about Lower Otay is our big kayak bass fishing KBF tournament that we get down here for the past 3 years in a row now. It's always right around July. I believe it was in early July again this year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Mark can help out with that. But they always come here for the summer. We get some NorCal guys to come down. We get pretty much all the SoCal guys with the kayak. We get a lot of salt fishermen that come for that because there's a big payday. And it's a big tournament. I mean, it's a big event. It gets posted on the KBF page. Everybody knows about it, who won. There's a big trophy. There's a big check. So, again, that was scheduled to come here this year. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, but I don't know either. So, I think right now it's kind of to be determined / canceled, whatever that means. But it's a very popular lake around here. It's a year-round lake with no water contact. It's open on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays only. So, again, for those of you that are new to San Diego, it's crazy that we have lakes that are only open on certain days. I know it's weird. It took me forever to get used to, but I think it does help because our lakes are very pressured. So their one random closed day is the second Wednesday of each month. And this was the lake that I ended up trying to go to on a Wednesday and found out the hard way about this whole closed one day a month thing. So second Wednesday of each month, you cannot go there. It'll be closed. Again, it has hosted 2 KBF Western Region Tournament trails. Those are a big deal. 2 of our members have won. So we haven't let any out-of-towners come and take that one yet. But, man, I haven't helped at all. I suck at this lake, and this is my home lake. So I shouldn't even be up here even saying the words Lower Otay. But the lake basically splits off into 2 arms. So to the north is an arm called Otay Arm, and to the east is an arm called Harvey's Arm. And I would say, I don't know, 85% of the fishermen are usually in one arm or the other arm, in my opinion. There's 25 miles of shoreline, and it is basically a single launch, as is San Vicente and Hodges as well. But there is a secondary launch on the point that splits Harvey's Arm and Otay's Arm. It is a pain in the butt, though, to launch there. And you can get trapped in. I launch there a lot because I can pick up my kayak and walk it down the rocks. I'm okay with it. I just push it down. But you can get trapped in. I've been trapped in by like mountain bikers park their vehicles there. And then now I can't even get my kayak out. So be careful of that. The gate at that launch also will close. I've learned this the hard way. The gate at that point launch will close an hour earlier than the whole rest of the lake. So the lake staff will show up there. They'll circle. And my truck was there. They wrote me a note, left it on my truck, and said that I need to get out of there next time an hour earlier than when the lake actually closes. And then a second time it happened, they didn't leave a note. They actually waited for me. and then told me that I needed to leave. So be cautious of that because they will threaten to lock you in. I'm not going to test them on that, but they say that they will lock your vehicle in there. Otay Arm. So to the north, Otay Arm at the end, it's got some trees that'll stick out of the water. That's pretty much, I think, the only place there that has that on the whole lake. And a lot of float tubers in that area because that's one of the areas that they can launch from. They just park across the street and walk down. So usually you'll see a lot of float tubers in that area. Harvey's Arm to the east, it pretty much changes every year. So we have some type of weeds, if anybody knows what those weeds are, that are like the floating weeds that are at the back of Harvey's right now, but sometimes during storms we'll move to the other side of Harvey's. Go ahead and post whatever those are called, but we always call it cabbage here because no one really knows what the heck it's called. So we call it cabbage. That cabbage kind of will float around. Most of the time, 90% of the time since I've fished Lower Otay, it's always been at the end of Harvey's. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that, guys, but there has been some times where we've gotten some crazy storms like a couple years ago, and it pushed the cabbage to the opposite end of Harvey's headed west. And then there was a big spot there full of cabbage where guys were just slaying big fish, pitching Cincos and things like that in the cabbage. And they were doing really well. So those fish will get up underneath that cabbage for sure. And pretty much everybody knows about it. So if there's kayakers out there, a lot of times they're already there. They beat you there, especially me because I paddle, or the boats will beat you there. So everybody fishes that cabbage. It's definitely no secret, but the big ones will hide up underneath that cabbage, especially during the summer months. Let's see what else. The entire lake is surrounded by tules. So it's a lot different than Hodges. It's a lot different than Sutherland. It's a lot different than San Vicente. It is literally tules all the way around. So as you can imagine, most of the time you see boats shallow flipping tules. Kayakers do really well flipping tules. Big creature baits, stick baits, Cincos, kill it there. Guys will drop shot the edge of the tule line. Guys will rig the drop shot weedless and pitch them, a few feet into the tules, and guys get bit there all the time. I've seen double digit caught on a frog there, working the frog. You could pitch it into the tules and then work it out of the tules. As long as you don't get your braid hung up on top of the tules, you kind of side skip a frog into those tules first, like 3 feet in, and work that frog out. You can get some serious frog blowups in there for sure. And then guys will walk frogs or spooks or anything topwater down the tule lines and do really well. Most of the lake, and again, this is my opinion, so help me out, guys. There's plenty of people that have fished this lake more than I have, has kind of a mud bottom, especially in Harvey's Arm. Besides the very beginning of Harvey's Arm, there's a bunch of boulders. You'll know that there's a bunch of boulders usually because there's already a boat on top of it drop shotting it. There's always older retired guys that are out there, and they have those rock piles graphed, and they go there right away, and they'll sit there and they'll drop shot them all day. The times that you could actually get on those boulders when no one else is out there, you'll catch fish for sure on a drop shot. Some of the best drop shot fishing that I've done, I don't do it often because I'm not good at it, but has been on those rock piles. So as you're entering Harvey's, just look around on your graph if you've got a graph. If you don't have a graph, look where the boats are and just kind of mark that spot, visually mark that spot. But most of the lake has a mud bottom, so it's kind of hard to fish like crankbaits and things like that. But you can get bit on crankbaits there. It's just it's not really the ideal bottom that you're looking for to drag a crankbait through. Let's see. Water clarity there. It's kind of a weird lake for water clarity, in my opinion. It changes a lot. So there's times where the water clarity is, bad after rain or heavy wind where you can only see like 3 feet down. And then there's other times where you could see 10 feet down. Get along the side of the tules and look down and you're in 10 feet. You could see the bottom easy. So it changes all the time there, and I think it's weather dependent a lot. At least in my opinion, that's what I think it is. But it's not known as like a super clear lake. It's not a San Vicente. It's not a Miramar. Um, so it just, you got to be ready for a ton of visibility or hardly any visibility at all. And most of the time, just pay attention to what the weather has been like recently, and you'll kind of get an idea of what it is, what it's going to be like. Baits, soft plastics, Cincos kill it there. 2 years ago, the KBF Western Regional Trail was won by Gino, who I don't know if Gino's on tonight. I haven't seen him pop up in the chat. He said he was going to try to. He won it fishing a Cinco and killed it. And I think he fished a Cinco pretty much all day. A lot of people do well. Steve, who I know is in here, he's a hammer there. He crushes it fishing a Cinco there. He's got that place dialed in for sure. And I hit him up on another lake. I could have easily have hit him up and asked about this lake. Pretty much could ask Steve about any lake, in my opinion. Whatever lake we want to know about, just ask Steve. But I wanted to kind of spread it all out and give everybody their opportunity. So bladed jigs, I've had a really good day. I actually have it right here. The very first, this is a Picasso shock blade. They work really well out here in San Diego. A lot of guys that are in this club or used to be in this club are on the Picasso team. And I actually found this bait one of my first years ever fishing Lower Otay, stuck on a tule, and I tied it on, and I did really well that day fishing that bait. So it's just a natural shad color, shock blade, chatterbait style bladed jig, and it does really well, and that's just a Seiko trailer. I've got a couple videos where I've done pretty well, 20-plus inch fish on that bait right there. So you don't have to buy the expensive jackhammers or thunder crickets from Strike King. You can get away with these, and these work really well. They're cheaper. That's the Picasso shock blade, if you guys don't know. It's a lake where you can fish a ton of different ways. So 2 years ago, Gino won it on a Cinco, and then the next year, I'm drawing a blank. Help me out. Who won it the next year? He's in this club. Now I feel like a jerk. And he won it basically on a jerk bait that he was swimming through a bunch of bait, and he was next to Lepke, Brian Lepke. I hope I'm saying that right, but he killed it, and he was actually next to me fishing, and he was throwing it through bait, it was like a little jerk bait. I don't know if he's on here or not, or if he wants me to talk about it. But it was, with what Mark's saying, it was a small jerk bait on a retrieve. So he was kind of swimming it through the bait, and there was bait that was all over the place back there next to us. There was a few of us back there fishing that same area, and he was killing it doing that. So it's been one off of reaction style, treble hook bait, and then it's been one off of Cinco. So that's 2 years in the same time of year, two completely different styles, two champions. So you can get away with a ton of different stuff there. So be open to trying different things. Frog-wise, I grabbed this Spro frog right here, just a popping frog. I like to pop it down the edge of the tules. You'll get bit doing it, I promise. You may not hook up, bend your hooks out, but I do get bit on a frog a lot at Otay, more than other lakes. Just keep it on the edge of that tule line, make long casts, and walk that frog or walk that spook, and you'll get bit. Just take your time. It's have patience here in San Diego, especially if you're not from here. Just have patience, because it's going to take you a little bit to get dialed in, and even guys that are dialed in have bad days. It's not an easy place to fish, in my opinion. Out of everywhere I've ever fished in the United States, San Diego has by far been my hardest place. And I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but it's tough for sure. So don't feel like you can't catch them here. You'll get on them. It might take you a little bit of time. Just keep working. Okay, the next stop would have been Miramar, because that lake kicks my butt. And there's just, in my opinion, there's better lakes to fish. It's a daily lake, open daily. The one random day that it's closed now, this new little schedule they did, is the first Tuesday of each month. It is closed. That's it. Besides that, any other day you can go and you're fine. No water contact lake. It's small, one of the smallest lakes that we have here, and there's only 4 total shoreline miles. So more than a third of the lake is buoyed off where the dam is, and that's something else that you got to get used to if you're new to San Diego. Is they buoy off a lot of big areas on our lakes close to the dam. We're not allowed to fish next to them. Don't ask me why. I'm sure other people have probably asked and know the reason, but other lakes up north that I used to fish, you can go right alongside the dam. No one cares. So this lake has some of the biggest fish caught ever. Not just in San Diego, like all time. And that is on usually big swim baits. Usually guys are getting them on big swim baits or they're bed fishing. It is very clear. All right. It's extremely clear. It's like San Vicente, but its structure wise is like Otay. So it's pretty much all tules. Almost the whole lake is surrounded by tules and crystal clear water. And it's a very bare bottom lake. I reached out to Mark Chrisman, the president of SoCal Kayak Anglers, for this lake because he lives out there and he fishes there more than the average person does, but he still doesn't fish there very often. And he didn't even want to talk about it because he doesn't really like it that much. But there has been big fish caught out there. If you go on like SD Fish and part of the swim baits page, SD Fish is a website, local website here. It's got forums. There are guys that can get huge bites out there on like a Depths 250 or big swim baits, but those guys are putting in a lot of time on that lake. I mean, days and days and days and days and days of never getting bit and then finally getting that one bite. So if you want to do it, you can do it. And there is giants in there. Just be prepared to get skunked. So if this is from Mark Chrisman. He says it's fairly straightforward lake as far as San Diego is concerned. He says make no mistake about its size because 5 of the top 25 largemouth ever caught has come out of Miramar, one being over 20 pounds. It used to get trout plants in the past. He says it's got gin clear water, 10 to 15 foot visibility, so he throws light line. One of the most productive days he's ever had out there fishing was on 4-pound test. He says there's mostly 10 to 14-inch clones, but there's a fair amount of 16 to 18-inch fish that'll keep you interested. And I think that's another reason why you don't really see a lot of us SoCal Kayak Anglers out there, is because you do catch a lot of small fish there. He says the biggest fish he's ever caught out of there was 20 inches blind casting to tules during the spawn with a decent amount of wind ripple. So they're definitely in there. While there are mostly tules for you to pitch to, you can grind it out with a Cinco year-round. However, drop shotting on the tules works too, but it can be frustrating for me. During the summer, the grass will grow in a few of the fingers on the north side, and you can have success with the drop shot in 15 to 20 feet deep of water, as well as main lake points. Early in the summer, you can have success running a small crankbait on the south side of the main lake points early, but once the sun comes up, he says it pretty much shuts down. That bite is gone. He says there's limited natural structure in the lake, but there are a few man-made structures. This was something that I had no idea about until he told me. I did not know they had man-made structures in there. He says the only thing that they ever hold for me is his lure. So maybe it's a good thing I don't know about the man-made structure. He says the natural spots do hold bass, but not what I would call consistently. And he only puts 5 to 10 casts there, and then he's gone. So if he's not getting bit on that structure, he gets out of there. His techniques: drop shot, 4-pound to 8-pound line. So very light line drop shotting. He'll Carolina rig there, 8 to 10-pound line. Cinco, 5-inch or 6-inch, wacky or Texas rigged, no weight. Small crankbaits, small wiggle wart type baits, and Flukes and Ned Rig. Some other stuff that he's done well on out there. All right, so that's from Mark. Thanks, Mark. I know that's not the best lake to talk about or the most fun lake to talk about, but it is on the schedule. And I don't remember who won the last time we fished out there, but I just remember that I only caught 3, and it was all finesse for me. So I put baits, Brian. All right, right on. I put baits. I put flipping soft plastics deep into tules. So I wrote all my stuff before these guys gave me their information because I didn't know exactly who was all going to help me. But for me, a lot of the stuff was the same exact stuff that Mark said. Flipping Cincos into the tules, drop shotting deep, long casts, have those natural presentations. I have done good out there with jerk baits, small jerk baits. So like something like that. That's a little Rapala shadow wrap jerk bait, slow riser, real natural color. You will see bait in Miramar for sure. There was a time that I was out there with Richard Penny and his son Jake, and they were busting on top water, and they were throwing, I believe it was either flukes or jerk baits into them, and they did really well out there doing that. Another thing that I've done well on is like a Zara Spook, a little junior one. So the Super Spook Junior in a real natural color, something like that. This is pretty much my Miramar bait. I go to it a lot when I fish Miramar. Most of the time I'll start with something bigger like a rover. This is a River to Sea rover. Again, another clearish color, real natural presentation. If they don't bite this, I'll switch and I'll throw this one, a smaller one. So I throw them on braid and they still get bit out there. So don't worry about that. And then for a little deeper crankbait, the Spro McRip does pretty well. That gets down a little bit deeper. Stacy 90 again is another bait, real natural colors. That was the stuff that I picked out for that. That's Miramar. It is what it is for Lake Miramar. I don't know if we have anybody in here that really likes fishing it, but it is on the schedule, and we're trying to get better as a club, and it's on the schedule. We got to put some time in and learn how to fish it because I know it's got big fish in there. All right, coming up on an hour, we got 2 more lakes, so I'll try to hurry through. Okay, Lake Murray is the 6th stop. Okay, this one's kind of a longer write-up, so I'll try to hurry through. Hopefully you guys aren't falling asleep on me. Okay, Lake Murray is a year-round lake. It's closed the second Tuesday of each month. So I think there was another lake already that was closed the second Tuesday of each month. That might have been Miramar, actually. So again, just pay attention to that stuff. It could really bite you in the butt, especially if you pack all your stuff and you get super motivated and you listen to your favorite playlist and then you get there and it's shut down. It sucks. So there's only 3.2 miles of shoreline, even smaller than Miramar. You can basically cover this lake just like Miramar easily in a 6-hour, 7-hour fishing trip out there. And I'm in a paddle kayak and I can do it. But I do move around a lot. This is another lake where a good portion of it's buoyed off, and you'll see that if you want to check it out on like Google Earth. It gets a lot of pressure, and it gets a lot of pressure from basically all different skill levels of anglers. So basically, that's my nicest way of saying you'll see some guys that have no idea what they're doing out there, and you'll see some crazy stuff like Carolina rigged frogs in the tules, stuff like that. A lot of times it's just kids. It's kind of in the middle of a city. It's a very weird lake. And a lot of kids go down there, and it's just you'll see some crazy stuff happening. And then you'll see some guys that just hammer them out there, some really good anglers out there that are out there all the time. So all different skill levels fish it, and it gets fished a lot. Again, it's another one of those lakes that's surrounded by tules, but not the entire lake. There are some spots that you could hit up with reaction baits for sure. There's a lot of main points on this lake that get a ton of focus, but even with that pressure and that focus, you can usually still get bit on them. You may have to try a bunch of different things before you do get bit, but if you can go on a main lake point, you can do pretty well most of the time. I won't say pretty well. You can catch fish most of the time. It's got more, again, these are all my opinions, but it's got more of a hard bottom than most of the lakes that I've noticed, at least. So I like to crank deep. I like to throw crankbaits. This is one of my favorite lakes to throw crankbaits at. Other anglers that just hammer it here. Sonny, I don't know if he's in here. Derwin is another one. Steve is who I actually reached out to. And he's got a ton of great information here that I'm about to read to you. But there's a lot of guys that kill it at this lake, and then there's a lot of guys that struggle at this lake. And I think a lot of it's just putting the time in. There is newly added structure. So I was there not too long ago before this closure happened, and I'm sure some of you guys already know about this. They threw in new structure, new bushes, and things like that. So get out there, try to find that structure. The fish should be there whenever we get the chance. Water clarity, it's one of the ones that changes throughout the year, at least in my opinion. And Steve is the expert. Erwin, Sonny, ask these guys about it. But in my opinion, it kind of changes a lot. It's not super clear, but it kind of reminds me of Otay, where you can have clear days and then you can have real murky days. There's an algae bloom that usually hits there that gets pretty bad for about a week. So all different types of ways you can fish this lake. So this is from Steve. He says, I always start with a weightless 5-inch Senko rigged weedless on a 3/0 extra wide gap hook. I throw it on the outside edges of tules and into any deep holes that he could find that are within reach inside the tules. He says, if I work a few arms of the lake with little or no success, I will fish parallel to the tule lines in 10 to 20 feet of water, and of course points with drop shot using 3/8 ounce tungsten weight and a number 2 mosquito hook. He fishes it nose hooked, a 4 to 6 inch roboworm nose hooked on 8-pound fluoro. That is how I fish Murray 90% of the time. The times that I stray from those techniques are the spawn, which is usually Texas rigged creature baits. And then there's the dead of winter, and one of his favorite times to fish Murray. He says, I will crisscross the main lake on 30 to 60 feet of water, concentrating on the fish finder in search of bait. Schools of bait, schools of fish, and when lucky, schools of feeding fish. He throws a Rapala ice jig, 5/8 to half an ounce, which is grabbed right here, and I only know about this because of Steve and his reports, but that's what he's talking about. That's the Rapala ice jig. That's a half ounce, and he'll just jig away. He says that can be one of the best bites you will find at Murray, but very inconsistent. It can be on fire one day, and then the next day it's a ghost town. He likes to use 8-pound fluoro or mono when he's doing this jigging with these ice jigs. Usually late summer to fall, there's a decent topwater bite at Murray. Poppers, spooks, and flukes will do the trick. Yeah, definitely. I've been out there on days where the spook does really well. Me and my buddies refer to Murray as the myth because you can have some great days and think you have that lake figured out. And then the next time you go out there, you'll get skunked. So baits-wise, he says a little bit of everything. You can finesse, you can fish reaction, but if one is on, the other one isn't. And that's very true. Wintertime, you can get on the good ice jig, the spoon bite, once you could find that bait. So find that bait and then drop down on them. And a lot of times you'll see those arches on your graph right next to that bait. And if you've got a really good graph, you can see them actually follow your bait. He says pre-spawn, you can get a good crankbait bite at pretty much every depth. The tules always hold fish, Alabama rigs, bladed jigs. One of my favorite baits to throw is a square bill. Definitely Derwin kills it on crankbaits out there. And then at the bottom, I said, that's it from Steve. Thanks, Steve. Again, a ton of knowledge on that lake. The guy kills it there. And then I wrote, again, notable people to talk to if they feel like sharing information. Sonny, for sure, and Derwin, they do really well. And I know I'm missing other guys, but those guys they report a lot about fishing Murray. Baits-wise, before I talked to Steve, I wrote, Senkos in the tules, drop shotting, crankbaits at all depths. especially with that harder bottom along those main points. You could throw something like a 6XD. The best I've ever done with a 6XD in San Diego has been at Lake Murray. That color is just a regular bluegill color. Fishing the points there, the main points. And back in those days, I wasn't allowed to show any film or any footage about me catching fish on hard baits through promotional staff that I was doing. So unfortunately, I have like none of that stuff on video, but there has been great days out there with that bait right there. 6XD in a bluegill color, real natural, does really well on those main points. Another bait that works well out there if you want to get them, if they're not biting the bigger baits, you can go Finesse. That's a Spro rock crawler, does really well out there. Pretty much any color that Spro makes. They don't make a lot, but they all get bit. Super deep. This has been a good one for me. This goes 22 to 26. This is a 500 series bait from 6 Cents. They actually don't make it anymore, but they make the Cloud series, which goes this deep. And I like to get these off pearl white colors for the deep water because it's going to get worse clarity. The clarity is going to be worse there. So you can go chartreuse or something that off eggshell white color. And then another one that I've done well on is that 6 Cents. That's the Curve 55. Another little Finesse 8 to 12 foot diver does really well there. When you could stay out of the grass with those crankbaits, you can have good days. And then if you find grass, don't be afraid to throw grass baits, something like creature baits and chatter baits, and just rip through that grass. So that's Lake Murray. Again, I appreciate it, Steve. He doesn't have to share that stuff, especially because he takes all our money. So I hope you guys are writing all this stuff down, because if not, he's going to take your money. All right, last lake, El Cap. I put El Cap at the back because we already got our butts kicked at El Cap by Jonathan. I don't know how to say his last name. Demonot, whatever. I can't read. I got like a 6th grade reading level. So Demonit, it might be Demonit. But I don't know if he's on here or not. But he absolutely killed us out there. So I wasn't able to get a hold of really anybody to talk about El Cap. I wasn't too concerned since we already fished it. A lot of people, the 15 people watching right now, probably all fished it. But again, this is El Capitan. It was our first lake. This is where we got beat down by the jig. It's got a winter. It's got a summer schedule similar to San Vicente. Winter is November to April, and it's right next to San Vicente. Winter is November through April, and that's where the lake is open Friday through Tuesday, and the only water contact day is Saturday. So during that winter schedule, Saturday is the only time you'll see people out there on the jet skis and doing crazy stuff. Most of the time they're not out there in the winter, but occasionally you get some crazy dude in a wetsuit out there. And for those of you that fish the tournament, if you were close to the ramp like I was, those guys make fishing a complete nightmare. And I don't know if they don't have a ton of respect or they just don't know what they're doing, but they will come right up over your line when you're out throwing a drop shot, and you could be out there and they'll go right across it. And I don't know if it's just I'm pretty sure they don't know what they're doing. So I try not to lose, your head. I got pretty heated, but I didn't say anything. But it can get frustrating, especially when it's during a tournament. So just be prepared for that. That's stuff that I do a terrible job of preparing for. I always forget about it until it happens to me. So that's the winter schedule. The summer schedule is May through October. The same days, Friday through Tuesday, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are water contact days. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it becomes a madhouse there. Ever since San Vicente opened, it's gotten a little bit better because people like that clear water in San Vicente. I guess it just makes them feel better. It's nicer water. So a lot of them have left and gone to San Vicente instead during the summer, but they're still out there. There's still a ton of people out there, wakeboarders, jet skiers, all sorts, just pleasure boaters. And they could cause you to flip your kayak and lose like $2,000 worth of gear if you're an idiot like me. So be prepared for that. It's got, of course, dirtier water than Miramar, San Vicente. It's got a ton of structure. It's very similar to Lake Hodges and Sutherland, at least in my opinion. It's a big lake, 22 miles of shoreline. I'm a paddle kayaker, so I've never been to the very back, and I know that that's a long haul even for guys with the torpedoes to get all the way to the very back. So, I'd like to go back there. It looks nice. The structure looks good back there, but be prepared that on your way back, you're going to be facing that wind is going to be hitting you in the face 99 out of 100 times. Getting back to the ramp at El Cap, you're going to have wind in your face, and the wind is always strong there. Once 11 to noon hits, that wind starts to come up. So be prepared for that if you want to make that long run to the back. There's a ton of different structure. So I actually was fishing next to John when he won it on this last one. And he was fishing a secondary point that was heading into a spawning pocket. So I was the idiot that went in the spawning pocket thinking they might have already been spawning. I didn't get to pre-fish. He stayed out on the next point and absolutely killed it. So secondary points during the pre-spawn obviously are fire because he absolutely killed us in the tournament, fishing a jig. So there's obviously boulders, there's bushes, there's trees, there's everything you could think of at El Cap. Many ways to fish the lake. It's got enough water clarity to fish the drop shot and do very, very well, and then it's got enough dinginess to it to throw different color reaction baits with a little bit heavier line and still get bit there. I watched Mark Chrisman do very well out there on reaction baits. I've been with him where he's done very well. So there's a lot of ways to fish it. Let's see. There's tons of bait as well. You'll see a ton of bait in that lake. So if you could find the bait, try to get your baits down in that bait, but that bait moves around a lot. Those fish are hurting the bait all the time, and that bait can get really deep. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to ice jig out there. Maybe Steve has, but there's definitely been times out there where I found the bait, I found fish on the bait, and I didn't have an ice jig or a spoon with me, and I wish I did. So the water fluctuates a ton there as well, due to San Diego constantly messing with it. They need to provide water for other lakes. A lot of times they will pull water from El Cap, and during the fire season in the summertime, they come and they pull water from El Cap a lot as well. You'll see the helicopters come in for any of the fires that are nearby, LA County and stuff. You'll see a lot of times when you're out there fishing, a helicopter will come in and they'll just keep pulling water. So that water is always up and down, fluctuating. And usually you can tell it's gone up or down a lot by looking at the shoreline. And then as well as on the dam side, heading towards the dam, from the boat ramp, you'll see some of those boulders that are submerged in the water currently that'll start to come out and show themselves when that water starts to drop. Baits-wise that I put down, tons of different ways to fish. Obviously, the jig, as we all know, and the margarita mutilator drop shot, as we all know. Bladed baits work very well. Crankbaits work very well. Spinner baits, the best day I've ever had there in my life was one of the best days I ever fished in San Diego. It was in the middle of a rainstorm, and I was throwing I don't even have it here, but I was throwing a spinner bait, and it was pouring down rain. There was only me and one other boat. We were both throwing spinner baits side by side in a pocket, and we were both just hammering them. I mean, it was crazy, and it was like a huge rainstorm. So every time a rainstorm happens in San Diego, I always want to go to El Cap, and I've tried to go back and do that again. It doesn't work nearly as good as it did that one day for whatever reason. Shallow and deep crankbaits work well there. There's definitely been guys that do well on the crankbaits. Swim baits work very well there as well. A lot of times paddle tail swim baits and big swim baits. Jerk baits, you can do well on jerk baits there. Pretty much everything. You just got to look at the water and look at the time of year. And fish that lake kind of like how you would read about bass fishing. A lot of our other lakes don't have that. You can study bass fishing, and then you can go to a lake and their bass should be doing this because it's this time of year, it's this temperature, there's this much wind, and there's cloud coverage, and it doesn't matter. They're in the Tules, and you throw a drop shot or a Cinco and you catch them. So this is one of those lakes where they kind of follow the seasonal pattern pretty well, in my opinion. So the time of the year should dictate what you're throwing there. Some baits that I've done well on, I've actually done really well on a whopper plopper there. This color, I think it's called Rat-a-tat, and it's a river to sea. It's the bigger version of the 130. I've had really good days out there, just next to structure, just throwing it up next to the sticks. I've done really well. That was during the summer months. And then natural colored, loud, lipless baits. That's just a rattle trap in one of the many colors that they have. And then that's a booyah, just loud, lots of flash when that sun gets up, but still a natural presentation. So that's it. That's all our lakes. I've got some final last words before we can get into an open discussion. I haven't been reading your guys' stuff because I've been reading off these lists, so I apologize for that. I know guys are in here answering questions, though. There's a lot of great anglers in here that are helping me out. I appreciate that a ton. So anybody got any questions about the lakes, feel free to drop it in the chat now, and guys are going to help you out. I can help you out, whatever we want to talk about moving forward. But we'll do this open discussion for a little bit longer, and then we'll close it out here. Getting your guys' feedback. Is this something that we would want to do again? If you guys are interested in doing it again, we could keep this going to maybe once a week while we're on lockdown, and we could change up the subject. Do another vote style thing on the SoCal Kayak Anglers Facebook page. Do a vote. We can try to do like a Facebook Live. What I was thinking was, what I don't like about this whole process is I don't want people to feel like I'm trying to make my page benefit from SoCal Kayak Anglers, my YouTube page. So that's the one thing I was worried about. I let Mark, the president, and the guys that are a part of the board know that I don't want that to be this at all. So I hope nobody took it that way. My intentions moving forward would be to bring members on the show. So this is my first time ever going live. So you can go live and bring people on. And I've been watching a ton of live videos for like years now on YouTube, and I've just never thought about going live because I'm ugly as all hell. And it's just something that it's weird to talk to a camera. But if people get other people on, vote for what we want to talk about, and then we could bring people on here. It turns into a split screen, and we just let that person be the subject of whatever they want to talk. I don't know if that's something that you guys would want to do, but I think it would be a pretty good time to have guys come on here and just talk about, whatever we vote on, and have them just teach us, if they're willing to do it and they want to do it. I know there's guys that have reached out to me already that have talked about wanting to come on. It's just with this one, I talked to so many people, and me trying to figure out how to get all those people on, hanging up with people, getting another person on, connection being bad, it was just too much. So if we can do 1 or 2 people a night, that would be awesome. We could split it into like 30-minute segments where we do 2 different discussions or what. Just let me know in the comments. I can go back and read through all your comments, and I'm going to after this. So I'm sure Aaron has made fun of me plenty during this. And if he hasn't, he probably has on my cell phone. So intentions moving forward, bring members on. Let's talk fishing. Let's try to keep our minds, sane right now. Tonight was just so broad that I can't bring everybody on. So suggestions would be nice. Let me know what you guys, would change if it was you, or what you guys want to help out with, or anything. We can all do this. And then if we like the vote thing on the page, we can continue to do the vote thing on the page and just let people pick topics. Unfortunately, Mark, I don't know why you only catch small fish, but I also voted for that because I only catch small fish. So before people start dropping out, I want to thank our sponsors. So obviously this is really tough times for our sponsors and small business owners. People are just getting crushed by this right now. So I'm going to run through the sponsors. It would be nice if you guys could kind of help them out any way you can. I mean, you don't have to because we're all going through hard times, but just think about those small business owners out there right now. And they definitely need help now more than ever. So running through the sponsors, show them some love all you can. Kayak Bass Fishing, KBF, OEX. There's a place, I don't know if they're still open, but I know they'll do orders online for sure. So, if you need anything right now is the time to fix those kayaks up, man. OAX will help you out. Fastlane as well. Same thing for Fastlane. I'm sure Steve could answer some questions if Fastlane's open right now or what the deal is with them. But any way that we can help out, we got to help them out. East County Bait and Tackle. Again, I don't know if these places are open, but East County Bait and Tackle's got an Instagram and a Facebook page. All these places have Instagram and Facebook page. You can check if they're open, help them out. Fishing Syndicate, TRC Covers, American Angler Clothing, Torpedo, and then TB Metal Art. So make sure to kind of help those guys out, man. They're going through probably some pretty hard times right now, like the rest of us, and some of us are still working. If you're still working and you can buy local, buy local. I know it's easy with Tackle Warehouse. I mean, I got a Tackle Warehouse order in today, so you could blame me, but we should probably start trying to help out local. And they're going through some tough times. So get Line Big on here to break down Otay. Yeah, we need Line Big on here to break down every lake in San Diego. For those of you that don't know, Line Big is a boat fisherman out here, and he does really well. Private Lake and Easy, happy to plug the lake if you wanted someone to call in. I'm open to anything you guys want to talk to me about. If you're on the SoCal Kayak Anglers page, or you're friends with me on Facebook, private message me any ideas that you guys have. Feel free, or just go and say it public on the page. Again, I got really thick skin. I know that at sometimes I can get hot-headed, and that's like my downfall. I'm working on it. I promise. I'm really not a mean person, but I let stupid things get to me, and I'm working on it. So I promise I won't go that route. I won't get crazy or anything. I'm open to anything you guys want to do. And at the end of the day, I just want the board to be okay with everything, and let's just help each other out. You know what I mean? So I even thought about, hey, if we want to move and try to do like Facebook Live on our page instead of my page on YouTube. I just don't know how to do Facebook Live. So if somebody wants to do Facebook Live or teach me how to do Facebook Live, I'll do it. And I'm sure it's not too hard. So I can learn how to do it. We could put it on our page. And, my biggest worry is just trolls coming in and being trolls. That was one thing I was told about, was be prepared for people to come in and just start saying dumb stuff. So that was kind of why I wanted to put it on my page for the first time. So that's pretty much all I got, guys. I'll keep it open on here until pretty much everybody rolls out of here, but we can talk fishing or whatever we want to talk about until then. I know I ain't got nothing going on, so let's see, tomorrow next week. I appreciate you guys tuning in, man. We had 15 people on, which I usually watch them where they got like 200 on. We'll get there one day. Yeah, Carrie coming on here and talking about just rigging kayaks, man. That guy knows a ton. Like, this is the type of stuff. Throw those suggestions out there, and then we'll put them in a poll, and we could vote. And if we can get guys that want to do it, nice. Steve, did you go to the river? I don't know if we can, if they're allowing us to fish the river anymore, but I did my first river trip, and nice. Did anybody give you any problems? So for those of you that don't know, which is most of you, because I didn't tell really anybody, I got stopped by a ranger the other day and was told to leave because all trails are closed in San Diego. Nice, 2 19-inchers. Gosh, man, see, yeah. So me and Aaron were going to go fish Lake Ramona, and Aaron made it to the top. That's, for those of you that don't know, Lake Ramona is just a lake you got to hike to up by Lake Poway. And if you look at the San Diego website, this was last week before it got even more crazier. But me and Aaron were 6 feet apart. He left like 10 minutes before I did. And I've been pretty respectful of the rules and everything. So if I'm not trying to break any rules at all while we're going through this. So it was my understanding that the lake was open because it wasn't on the list of closed lakes on the San Diego page that I found. So we went there. Aaron got up there, and then as I was trailing him about 10 minutes behind, I got stopped by a ranger, and he told me that all trails are closed. That's what he told me. So, and I said, okay. And then apparently there was a sign, and I missed the sign. I even asked Aaron if he saw a sign. He said he didn't see one. But yeah, so be careful. Just be respectful, because I mean, the guy was really cool with me. He didn't want to send me back. I mean, he even told me that because nobody was there. Me and Aaron were going late night fishing, so no one was going to be there. But rules are rules. I turned around, I went home. Aaron went up there and caught like 5 10-pounders. Or he forgot his headlamp and was a moron and had to come right back down. But I won't tell him what happened, Aaron. You're good. I definitely was late as always. I'm always late. 6 tubes and 2 other kayakers. Yeah, so I went to the main river spot that everybody knows about. It's no secret because it's pretty much the only spot that I know that I can get my kayak down to, and it was packed. You didn't catch one fish, Aaron? Oh, that's right. Yeah, so if you could still get on the river, that's good to know. I just know that my spot's taken. I only caught one too. For those of you that actually watch my YouTube videos, I got my butt kicked. Only caught one on a spinnerbait. Tons of fish on beds, couldn't get any of them to go. That's right. I remember you texting me that. For people that don't know about Lake Ramona, if you go to Lake Ramona in the middle of the night, this is something that me and Aaron used to do a lot of before we got into kayak fishing. If you go there late at night, you can have great nights at that lake. It's a hike. You got to hike up there to get there, for those of you that don't know. And there's no like gate or anything. Nobody monitors the lake. And super clear lake, but if you go there night fishing, you can do really well. Specifically top water, summer nights, top water there. I'm sure the local guys that have been fishing in San Diego way longer than me already know about this, but you can get some big fish there at nighttime. And before I kayak fish, that's what I used to do. Yeah, marina closed. 2 bites, nothing. Pressured now like crazy. Yeah, Larry, it is getting pressured. The guy that I talked to when I went and fished that spot on the river, he said he's fished there for years and years and years, and he said the day that I was out there was the most people he'd ever seen in that hole. So I definitely, and that was on like a Tuesday. I don't remember what day it was on, the middle of the week, and it was right when everything closed. I went the very next day, so. Yeah, I'm sure it's just getting worse and worse. Yeah, me too, Mark. I did an unboxing video today because I'm running out of content. I only have like 5 more videos left to post, and I just don't know what to do. I'm so bored, and it's not a good place to be in when the only thing you can do is buy fishing gear. At least for me, I don't make a ton of money. So thanks for tuning in, Aaron. I appreciate your help, man. I still don't like you, but I appreciate your help. Guys, don't feel like you got to stay on. You know, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you got to roll out of here. I get it. We've been on an hour and a half. That's pretty crazy. I expected it to be a lot shorter. That could be something that we talk about, you know, is how long we want to do this stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm getting text messages from people that said that it was fun. I do lives that are very knowledgeable people on YouTube that you can learn a lot of stuff from. So Gene Jensen, the Fluke Master, for those of you that don't know, his whole career is teaching people how to bass fish, and he's big into the kayak world now. So he's been doing kayak stuff. He does a Friday night live every Friday. He actually did it before I did mine. That was kind of why I scheduled mine a little bit later. If you watch his Friday night lives, he'll answer any questions you have about bass fishing, and the guy just knows a ton. And a lot of that stuff, especially now, man, it's huge. Kevin Van Dam has done a Facebook page. Jacob Wheeler has a Facebook page, and they've been going live because they're just like us. They're stuck on lockdown. All they want to do is talk fishing, and they're letting random people like me, people that don't know how to bass fish, ask them questions. And it's cool, man. They respond to you, and they are, real open to talking about fishing. Kevin Baxter, his name's Kevin the Baitman Baxter. He's basically like my idol. He's kind of newer in the YouTube world, but he's basically a bait guru, a bait junkie, and he's been collecting baits his whole life, and that's kind of what I've done my whole life. I have like this bad addiction to buying baits, and he knows every bait you could ever name that you've had since you were 6. You can say that bait, and he'll go grab it from his shop and hold it up in front of the camera and then talk about how he likes to fish it the best. And those type of people are just a wealth of knowledge. They're all over YouTube helping people get better. It's just something to look into if you guys want like a list of those people that I watch. I know Larry was talking about a guy that he watches the other day that's got a ton of knowledge too, a good YouTube page. There's a few locals in San Diego that do pretty well. You can find their YouTube pages, and they discuss kind of what they're doing. Line Big is one of them. I think it's called Rob Fishes San Diego is his YouTube channel, and he's done magazine articles and things on how he fishes San Diego. So he's well known around here, and he just started a YouTube channel this year, and he teaches a lot of stuff. And these are guys that have fished these lakes their whole life, man. They grew up here, so they're going to know this stuff better. What retrieve on a chatterbait? Man. So, yeah, what Mark said. Try every different retrieve, Steve, and grass. So like when Otay in the summer, when you get that high grass in the summer at Otay and it starts to get like ridiculously high before it gets to about a couple inches off the surface, and it's only about 2 feet off the surface, if you rip the chatterbaits through the top of it, like right after you rip it through the top of it, you'll get bit doing it. And it's usually a good sized fish, but it's that grass Otay grows so quick that like I'll go there one week and it'll be on fire, and you're like, oh, I'm going to kill it this month. And then the very next week you go there, and now that grass is out of the water, and you can't throw your chatterbait there anymore. So that's the worst part about it. But there's definitely periods where that grass gets like 24 inches, 12 inches off the top, and you're ripping it through the top of that grass. And I would wait until I'd feel the tick of the grass or a little bit hung up, and I just pop it really hard, and then go back to our normal retrieve, kill it, and then make it flutter, and then rip it. Yeah, some guys even hop it. I've never really done the hop technique, but G. Jensen talks about he kind of just jigs it. He'll let it fall to the bottom, rip it up, let it fall to the bottom, rip it up. I've never done that way. But guys, low and slow. Hob fishing, how you doing, man? I don't know how long you've been here, but we're done kind of with the main discussion. Now we're just chatting. We're just talking fishing right now. This video it'll go up after I go offline, so people can watch it if they didn't get to watch it. I'll post it in the SoCal Kayak Anglers page. It went long, but I thought there was a lot of good information from a ton of people. For the chatterbait, what size line? For me, I throw it on 12-pound Abrazex, but I'm sure 10-pound would work just as well. Mark could help me out on that. I know Mark doesn't like 12 pounder Brazex, though. I was running it low and slow, shallow with the bounce. Yeah, so um, that chatterbait, the chatterbait bite is when you could find it, it's on fire. I mean, 2 years ago at Clear Lake, that I caught like all my fish off the chatterbait, and it was all because I had found grass that was um, just at that depth that I needed. You know, just where it was 2 feet below the surface. I was ripping it through that grass, and it seemed like every single time I would rip, I would get bit right after the rip. Every single time, it was madness how many fish I caught back there. And then this past year, I went back and did that and didn't get a single bite. So it is what it is. Same time of year, same grass, same everything, and they wanted a frog instead. So, but that was one of the best times chatterbait fishing I've had. And then Otai has been my best in San Diego for sure. Wow, but that reservoir got drained? That's crazy. I wonder how many lures are at the bottom. FC Sniper. Yeah, yeah, man. Um, Feel free to go back and watch. There was a ton of good information that was put out by everybody on our local lakes. Um, I'm looking forward to getting out fishing with you guys too. That's kind of why we decided to do this. Just pure boredom. I'm stuck inside. I still have to work, but when I get home from work, I like sports and I like fishing, and they took both of those away from me. So at that point, me and Mark were just texting and talking back and forth about fishing, and it was like, man, I bet other people from SoCal would want to do this. So I was watching a bunch of live videos on YouTube, and it's like, let's just do it. I'm not the best looking dude to be the face right now, but I had a YouTube page and I knew how to do it, so I was like, screw it, I'll do it. And we'll see what we want to do going forward. We're going to have some more votes on the page on if we want to keep this up, but we had about 15 people in here and good conversations, and sounds like guys want to keep doing it. We'll keep doing it once a week and voting on what we want to talk about, and then bringing people on and just having those subject matter experts talk about that topic. Bottom of Hodges. Oh man, yeah, all the lures at the bottom of Hodges. Holy cow, it would be madness. Same thing with Sand B. Beast mode fishing. Always not sure how. Every so often for maintenance. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, us too, G team. That's fine, man. It'll be up. You'll still be able to watch it. A lot of good information. Yeah, me too, Mark. To fish Hodges. Yeah, definitely hit Hodges up. Hog fishing. Where are you coming from? It's weird because I don't know everybody's YouTube accounts, so like it takes me a while to figure out who's who. Arizona, okay. Yeah, Hodges, definitely hit up Hodges. That's it's a good lake. There's big fish there, that's for sure. A lot of our guys catch their biggest fish there. Otai is, you can do fine at Otai. I can't, but you can. Guys in here do great there. I'm just terrible at that lake. Um, yep, dumbest fisherman. Uh, Coach Worthless from SD Fish. Okay. Yeah, man, I appreciate you watching my videos and commenting, dumbest fisherman. I knew you said you wanted to be in here. Fish and learn some good stuff from your page. Nice. Yeah, there's so many people that are a wealth of knowledge on fishing, man. It's wild. It's nice just chatting with people like that. We could talk for days. So 12 people, we're actually gaining people now. Right now, if you're just joining, we're just talking. We already finished the lakes discussion. Kind of went over some baits and stuff that guys like to use at these lakes. How they have success there. I reached out to the better anglers at that lake, guys that I know that have had success at these local lakes in San Diego, and they wrote out big statements on what they like to do, how they fish them, different times of year, and all that stuff. So tons of great knowledge from guys that have been fishing these lakes and have been kicking our butts on the local scene at them, and they shared what they shared, and I appreciate it. Some guys went into a ton of depth and knowledge on how they're doing it, how they're beating all of us. So maybe we can turn the tides or beat them every once in a while. We'll see. I think the club has gotten a lot better events. Trying to give me info. How about everyone that's community and treat everyone like family? Yeah. I was a super short guy. We talked for a little bit not long ago. Yeah, I think I remember you. I mean, I don't think you were super short. Um, yeah, we were talking about the spinner bait down in that pocket, I believe. And you've got a YouTube channel, don't you? Hob fishing. I think I've seen your YouTube channels, or I might even be subscribed to you. Now that I think about it, if I'm thinking about the right one. I try to watch as many people as I can on YouTube because there's a lot of people like this whole YouTube thing is blown up. Greg Blanchard obviously is like the king. You haven't uploaded anything, okay? Um, Greg Blanchard like set the standard, and now everybody does it, and that's kind of like the downfall. But at the same time, for me, like I like to film myself fishing just because I learned so much that when I go back and I watch myself, I'll realize I was totally wrong on how I caught that fish. And then you watch it on video and you're like, wow, I wasn't ripping it through, fast. Like I was hopping it slow. And for whatever reason, you thought you did it one way. And then you go back and you look on video and you're like, wow, I was way wrong. Like the other day, me and Mark were fishing at Sutherland and we were talking about, I caught a 5-pounder on a frog. It was 22.5 inches, and Mark was asking me about what happened when I got bit on it, and I told him that I got bit on it right when it hit the water. Well, then I went back and I watched the video, and that was so far from the truth. I was like, man, I had walked that frog like 5 feet and then got hit. But for whatever reason in my mind, I told Mark, I was like, yeah, he hit right when it hit. I don't know why, but so the whole rest of the day I kept thinking, if I can get it next to structure, they should be blown up on it right away, and it wasn't happening. Well, then I went back and realized, no, I had worked that frog. It's just the excitement of a fish and all that stuff you just forget. And that type of stuff has helped tremendously to film yourself and then go back and kind of see like, okay, that's what I was doing. For me, that a lot of it is that right there, just learning. And then it's kind of that track record. It's almost like having this angler app. It's like, where did I catch that fish and what did I catch them on last year when I was fishing here? Oh, yeah, I have that video. You go back to watch the video and it's like, oh, yeah, they were busting this time of the year. And I was throwing this spook and they were killing this spook, and you go out the garage and you rig up, and it's like, it's always nice to have that. And then meeting people is huge too. I've met a lot of people, that are out on the water in San Diego, and my page isn't big at all, and guys will come up and like, oh yeah, I see you on YouTube. And then they talk to you and then they tell you about how good the bite was, and what they were catching them on. That's happened a few times where it's like, if I didn't have a YouTube channel, they would have never even stopped to talk to me. So